hours, okay.
We'd like to move away completely from city funding because it is unreliable.
Anybody else?
Well, I actually work with Mary through the Healthcare for the Homeless contract here in the city. So even though I work for the Haight-Ashbury Free Clinic, we have that funding. So, yeah.
So we mentioned the program at EVRC. How do you parallel that to, Mary, what you offer? Can you make a parallel to what we used to have here?
I mean, I think that the feeling at the EVRC drop-in was very similar, and it was very from the population. Like, the kids definitely had ownership. Mm-hmm. Whereas I think that happens a lot at HYA. I think the kids have a lot of, maybe too much ownership over the space sometimes. And like, you can walk in and not really tell who the staff or the kids are. You know, it's very grassroots.
We dressed up tonight.
Yeah, this is real professional for us.
I will say that, you know, there's a huge demand for mental health services at HYA. Just a huge demand from everything from, you know, I've been off my meds for this long, or I'm thinking about
Never
meds.
been on meds.
I've never been on meds. I'm, you know, tired of, you know, all these swings and so on, and just a huge, huge demand.
And we're definitely seeing an influx amongst the homeless youth of mental health issues, hugely, increasingly daily, I would say. Like much heavier mental illness, like many more schizophrenic youth and
tremendous amount of psychosis.
Yeah, a lot of psychosis.
So does anybody else have any experience with the EVRC program when it was going? Brenda?
We had a little bit, but it was towards the end of it, I think, when Mitchell had left, and I think Carla was kind of intermediary. And so then they called us out to do, to kind of help out the ones that had aged out.
Okay. Back.
And then all of a sudden it was gone.
A couple of years ago.
Mm-hmm. I only know what I've heard in the history and the gossip.
What did you hear?
Yeah, tell us.
That it was, you know, that it was a battle to get it started, but when it was going, it was successful. You know, that the concerns within the community around the noise pollution and the drug abuse and these things that they're really pinning on the youth, in fact didn't get worse. The noise pollution was fine. There was a decrease in crime during the period that the EVRC was open, and from my understanding, the big glitch was that the main staff person there, you know, the heart of the program, which I can't emphasize anymore, that the staff that work with youth need to be youth advocates, and that any service, any youth providing service that is profiting or expanding from youth services without profiting the youth is exploitation.
Yep.
And so I just think that, I mean, the major downfall was that Mitchell left, and that it lost its momentum. And as soon as you lose consistency in a youth program, it's the whole bottom is out.
So
you need consistency.
I wasn't familiar with it. Where did Mitchell go?
So the drop-in was here at EVRC, and then they redid the whole park area over in the EVRC.
Okay.
So
they
Mitch,
remodeled it.
Yeah,
right.
So
Okay.
Mitch moved over to the center at the little side room off from the library. He ran a drop-in over there. When this space opened back up, he came over here. What it was is a drop-in 5 days a week. It was open later in the afternoons and in the evenings where youth could come in. Other drop-in and outreach services would come in. There was groups. The nice thing when it popped back up is there's a kitchen, so he'd be in there. 2 youth every few hours would be cooking a meal for the rest of the community. There'd be art groups going on. There'd be movie groups going on. Internet, music, everything. It was an opportunity for everybody in the community to come in and be a part of something and take care of each other.
So Mitch is still around?
He
Just
retired
not here.
and he moved away from the Bay
He
Area.
moved away. Okay. Interesting.
You need a new.
You need a new Mitch. Okay. But the space is still here. We're down that way. Okay. I've been in the space. Last question. I think this is a $64,000 question for those of us who are over age 40. What can we do as a community to help queer youth in the Castro? Would like your thoughts
I mean,
on
I
that.
think what you guys are doing right now is huge. I think educating yourself and coming together as a community and recognizing that need and bringing people in who have experience with that is huge. It's something most neighborhoods won't acknowledge and won't recognize. So I think that you guys all deserve some kudos for that. I think that, yeah, building groups, working groups, and, you know, talking to people who do services. And I think what really is important that needs to happen is when I talk about how it needs to come from the population, there needs to be some kind of survey done amongst the youth about what their needs are and what their vision is, and what would empower them to move beyond the street, or to move beyond where they are in life, and to be safer and happier. And I think it's really great when we have ideas, but it's their vision and it's their lives. And so they need to be heavily included in any conversation that's going on.
So JR, since you've just come in, and you're penalized, what can we do as a community to help queer youth in the Castro? What are your ideas?
Well, besides the drop-in center, I don't know, it'd be cool to have like mentors. I don't know, that'd be kind of cool.
Okay.
Like in the Castro in general,
Yeah.
I don't know, stuff that get irritated with, like there's no transitional age programs like anywhere around here besides like Lyft now in the center, but like.
Transition was 18 to
Whatever.
24?
Yeah.
29.
29? Okay.
I mean, we work with youth up to 29, and I think that's something that's really important to acknowledge, because every year there's more and more budget cuts. There's no programs for transitional age youth. We're not going to age someone out when they turn 18 or 24 because they're 24. It's ridiculous. There is nowhere to transition these youth to. And so I think it's really negligent of programs to be really strict about age limits. I know for us, we've slowly pushed it up to 29, and sometimes we even let that go. And I think it's really about meeting that individual and working with them until they're ready to make that change. And they may not be ready to make that change until 25. And if they're not feeling welcome anywhere, they still don't feel safe in the adult services, they need to have somewhere where they can engage.
JR, you want to say something?
Yeah, so I don't know about like 30 years old, like that. 'Cause
How old
that's
are you,
a little-
JR?
22.
22.
Because that's like, I don't know, what I was going to say was like if you like screw up, like earlier we were talking about people getting kicked out of programs, if you like screw up at one place when you're still like younger, obviously, then like, and you can't go back to that services, then it's like, if you screwed up, there's like, obviously you couldn't make it, so like, you should still be allowed to go to services, but like, also like, if you like keep pushing it like up higher and higher then people are going to think that we don't have to like change or whatever though. So like maybe not like 30.
29 you're okay with?
Respect.
You may think differently in a few years.
I think, this is a big first step, is to start a community discussion. Let's talk about this as a community and not just as service providers. Certainly service providers can do a lot, but they can't do everything. What's really lacking here is a sense of family and a sense of, we're talking about why queer youth are homeless, and it's because they have come from all over the country because they've been exiled from their families and their communities, and because they thought they would find a family here, only to realize that rent is too high, there's no employment for them, and they have little to no education and training. And as for transitional age youth in particular, there are services for 18 and under, and Lyric does really great work. I think they do especially good work with folks who are around 21 and 20 years old and under, but there is definitely a cultural difference between those who are still in their teens and those who are, say, like 20 to 30 years old, people who are still transitioning or trying to transition into a healthy adulthood. So more transitional age youth services focus specifically on employment and housing.
Anybody else before we move on to questions? Mike?
Yeah, we're all in this room, for a reason, and so we're talking about service providers, an outreach program, all that kind of stuff. But we're all individuals as well, and we all walk around on these streets. Just a little bit of kindness, which I know you all have. That's the reason why you're here. Just a little bit of kindness goes a long, long way. So many of us have been on the street because we're members of the sexual minority, been outcast from the families, we don't fit in and all that kind of stuff. Just a little bit of kindness lets these young people know that they are valuable, that they're wanted, that they're welcome.
So we're going to open it up to community questions.
I want to pass around the list first. Anybody who wants to be involved with our work group, as I said, our work group will take off from this discussion and we will be meeting to discuss solutions, ways that we can help the situation. So if anybody wants to, please name and email. If you don't have an email, put your phone number, and I will be in touch with you about a meeting.
Okay, great. Sir? If you can say your name and what street you live on, that would be really helpful.
Oh, my name is Greg Melton. I live on Guerrero and 21st. I'm in the Castro all the time now. I'm here, so I thought it would be all right if I were here. My question's quite specific. I used to volunteer over at Magnet, and I have quite a bit of time, and I don't volunteer there anymore. Is there a place in your organizations for volunteers my age?